My concern is that there is a movement afoot in the nation to move towards no medication on race day. And I'm not focusing on Lasix, I'm just saying no medication on race day. And my concern is that all of us in this room have our own points of view, but we're the insiders. The outsiders are the general public here who don't see the specifics of this sport the way we see it. What they see is horses running on drugs and being whipped. And neither one of those compute to them of something they like to continue to see. I'm very, very concerned about where we are going as a sport, and we're in a position here to do something about it. And so far as I know, none of our track managements have taken a position on this similar to the positions that have been taken by other track managements. I don't know for sure where our horsemen's group stands, although I've seen publications where they're opposed to anything having to do with the elimination of Lasix. My attitude is there is compromise that has to be made here for the survival of this whole sport. And if there's not compromise, we run the very great risk of going the direction that dog racing went. We are in deep trouble in terms of public perception of what we're doing. And I'm not in any way arguing with the science that has supported our current positions. The science is fine, but it doesn't affect, the general public doesn't understand the science behind what we're doing. All they see is drugs being administered to horses. They don't know what the drugs are, and they are offended by that. The movement is against where we are now in the nation. Your legislators in the state are the ones that decide what's going to happen in the state, and it doesn't take too much for animal rights activists to sway their opinion. So I think that we've got to pay more attention than we're currently paying to the general public opinion of what is going on in our sport. An example of this is just yesterday, Governor Wolf was honored for being a true friend of animals and endorsing some new legislation having to do with dogs and some of it having to do with horses. Believe me, folks, it is coming. And if we bury our heads in the sand and say where we are, we can justify by the medical research that we have, you're missing the point. The point is that the public does not approve of what we're doing to maintain our sport. And what I would like to do is have this commission be in some form a facilitator between the factions that are in existence, at the parties that are in existence that represent all the factions of our sport. And I think it's important that they begin to meet to discuss where the compromises are that they can live with. And believe me, I can tell you, there will be pain. If the compromises are reached, there will be pain. There will be sacrifice on the part of all sides of this to get where we need to get, where we have something that is clean and promotable to the general public that they can wrap their arms around. Because there is an affiliation between humans and horses that we're cutting off by having this bad impression created. People want to love horses. They don't want to have us do harm to horses. We've got to move in that direction. So what I'm hoping is that in some way we can facilitate the meeting of the parties here to make progress towards the elimination of race day medication. And I'm not sure how to facilitate that. I need help from everybody that believes this is important. Or if you don't believe it important, you have to wake up and find out that it is important. Because this is something that's going to happen, and we want to be the ones that are facilitating a happy landing here, not the ones that are burying our sport.
Commissioner, thank you. Any other comments or views on that? Commissioner?
I'll clear up and make sure it's fully understood from a horseman's perspective. Commissioner, certainly understand and greatly respect where you're coming from. And it's that care and best interest of the horse that supports the horseman's position. And whether there can be middle ground, there will be no compromise on the health and welfare of the horse from a horseman's perspective. We care greatly for these animals. I think public perception would change greatly if an event of sudden death due to EIPH kills a human being, rider. It will happen. And the next question is going to be, you mean there was a medication that could be utilized that could have prevented this? We as horsemen are not going to let the uneducated misperception drive our position. It's that simple. And listen, there's nobody that has more respect or care for the thoroughbred racehorse than I do.
Sort of follow up on that, the Pennsylvania Equine Coalition had issued a statement in response to a media question, particularly related to some of the unfortunate incidents in Santa Anita, and so I just want to go through some of that just so that the Commission understands the coalition's perspective. So, obviously they're saddened and concerned by the tragic events in other states involving racehorses, and as of the Equine Coalition, that the thoroughbred racing officials and industry leaders have identified the cause of those incidents. The owners, trainers, veterinarians, caretakers, breeders, everyone involved in Pennsylvania's racing industry care deeply about the well-being and health of our horses. And that's regardless of whether the horse is one they own, one they're racing against, one racing in another state. The Lasix is the only pharmaceutical recommended by the American College of Veterinary Medicine for effective treatment of EIPH, exercise-induced pulmonary hemorrhage, bleeding from the lungs of a horse that occur during exercise. Given the absence of other effective treatments for EIPH, the American Association of Equine Practitioners supports the race day administration of Lasix to control EIPH. The view is echoed by the North American Association of Racetrack Veterinarians, which issued a statement last month, noting that there's no evidence that reduction or elimination of Lasix would have any value in reducing injury rates in racehorses, and that a ban would lead to increasing levels of EIPH and pulmonary diseases in horses. It's a very strongly worded statement. The North American Association of Racetrack Veterinarians suggests that the condition of the racetrack was a critical factor in racing injuries. Pennsylvania Equine Coalition supports the positions taken by equine veterinary organizations. The Lasix ban will have the opposite of its desired effect and possibly endanger the lives, health, and career of racehorses suffer from EIPH. Again, just to reiterate, prior to the members of the Equine Coalition to do what's best for the health of the horse, for what Todd said. Put it diplomatically, some track operators have other considerations that may factor into their positions on this issue. The views of our members are based on current research reports, policy positions, and statements by multiple national organizations that provide veterinary care to horses. No correlation has been shown between the use of Lasix and breakdowns in Santa Anita, Savannah, Pennsylvania, on the pretense of safety. Lasix would appear premature. We believe the policies related to the administration of Lasix should be based on what credible medical experts and national veterinary organizations say is best for the health of the horse. The health of the horse should be our focus, should never be superseded or overshadowed by other priorities.
My concern there is that you're dealing with the medical part of this issue, and I don't dispute what you're saying.
Right.
What you're saying is totally accurate. I don't think it's going to matter when public perception is going to overrule you. And the public perception is these horses are running medicated. And there are people that are going to make that decision against us are not going to be aware of the science behind it, and nobody's making them aware. And so I am concerned that no matter what our efforts are to make people aware of the science, public opinion is what is going to be our biggest enemy, or it's going to be what stops us in our tracks. And I think that when we hide behind the medical evidence, which is what we have been doing, I was on this commission way back when Lasix was first made usable. And so I got some perspective on what it was like before it was made usable. And I don't remember everybody telling me how inhumane we were treating our horses before Lasix came in. And I know there's a lot of you that don't remember what it was like before there was Lasix. But I'm very aware of that because I was here. And I am very concerned that we are fooling ourselves into believing our own gospel here. And it's perfectly understandable why we would be, because it's very logical and sensible what you're enumerating from the veterinary point of view on this thing. I'm afraid in the end of the day, it's not going to matter, because I think the general public thinks we're abusing our animals, and that's what's going to sink our ship unless we're doing something about it.
And Commissioner, we are, and I think you will see, I was actually sent something today, I think you will see different veterinarian associations with PR releases that will give links to the educational material on Lasix and what it does in the racehorse and how it prevents certain things. I know there's a movement afoot, and I won't disagree with you that education of the public on this particular issue needs to be improved dramatically, and we should have been doing it all along. And I think you see with our videos that we're putting together, we are doing our part, but I'm well aware of the veterinarian associations throughout the United States will be forthcoming very shortly. I just received something, today. And as far as race day medications, that's the only medication that is allowed on race day. There are no other medications that are allowed on race day. So it's about Lasix. It's been about the Lasix for the Jockey Club for a number of years now. And that's what this whole thing is about.
Todd, I hear you completely. And I'm not disputing the medical evidence that you're presenting. But all you have to do is pick up Sports Illustrated, the current issue, and see what Tim Layden, who's a non-prejudiced writer, has to say about it. And you can compare the circulation that your veterinary association is going to have compared to Sports Illustrated, and you see the size of the job that's ahead of us. It is major, and unless we do something significant, we're not going to get the attention that we need.
I agree with you. It's a major undertaking, and it needs to be involve all facets of the industry. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think I need to restate the paramount importance is the health of the horse. And that's the position of law.
I just want to add to that. I appreciate everything you're saying, and I do appreciate everything you're saying. What concerns me as a person who cares about the horse in Pennsylvania, who owns and breeds this, is the fact that what we would call insiders, the track operators, they're still insiders to an extent that they at least understand what makes this business work and how you get fields and all that. Even most of these other tracks where over 80% of the stakes races are run have come out and said they're going to ban Lasix starting next year, and then in stakes races after that. So I think he's correct that all this education that we've given so far, at least, has shown that even so-called insiders are doing it. So the general public who's uninformed is basically saying, well, if they're agreeing with it, then how can we not agree with it? That's the concern I have.
It will be interesting to see if the coalition that has made those comments follows through. I think at this point it was a situation where they're trying to control the message. Obviously we had serious issues with what happened at Santa Anita. Those racetracks are doing what they feel is necessary at this time. Hopefully cooler heads will prevail. We'll have that intelligent discussion and we'll educate the public and we'll be better for it down the road.
Any final point? I appreciate the exchange. I think what Mr. Jones has sort of put out is sort of a charge to us at large, to think about is there a compromise? Is there a central point? I don't know where it is. It seems to be fairly elusive, but I think the sensitivity to what the public perceptions are relative to Lasix and the varying views by those who are in that industry and hold some deeply held opinion. Both can't be wrong and both can't be right? So there's somewhere in that center there is a point. I think that's what Commissioner Jones was sort of charging us to think about what that is and where that is. So I think we ought to continue this conversation. I don't know. There's not an ask today other than putting out at large here to the stakeholders the concerns, the views, very respectful and civil exchange on. But